How you doing, everybody, and welcome to Pete Plays, a new segment on 8bits in the basement. So once a month we're going to get away from hardware, fixing, repairing and upgrading, and we're going to have a play of some of the systems I have. So I thought I'd kick off proceedings this time with the old Atari 2600. Now, if you possess an Atari 2600, you will notice some differences between the one I'm using and your own, surely, because the one I'm using is a Secam Atari, which means that I've only got a palette of 8 colors that can be displayed on the screen. So the games look substantially different from their American and PAL counterparts. Okay everyone, so I thought to start off this whole thing, what we would do was we would play a little bit of Yar's Revenge, which is a game that was made in the early 80s by Howard Scott Warshaw, the same Howard Scott Warshaw that brought us Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and also E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Atari 2600. Now this game is fantastic, and it's also one of the first games to come with a backstory to kind of get the player more involved in the whole thing. And the backstory, well, it's basically that we played the part of an evolved housefly. So houseflies in the future have gotten to the point where they have their own planet out in space, and they've also got their own culture and all the rest, but they've also evolved significantly, and they have made enemies with another race of aliens, and the race of aliens that they've made enemies with is represented by a little guy who looks like 2 eyes and a nose there on the right hand side of the screen. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to shoot him. Now he's protected by a blue force field, and also he has following us around the screen a little kind of a bullet. But we're safe from that little bullet if we enter the kind of asteroid belt in the middle of the screen, but the problem with that is we can't actually shoot once we're in there. So what we need to do is we need to destroy that blue force field around that alien dude that we want to kill, and then we need to touch him. And when we do that, it'll activate our ion cannon. As you can see, a kind of a bullet over on the left hand side of the screen. And what we do is we line up that little bullet with the alien, and then we press a button, well, press the button, and what happens is we launch that. And if we're lucky, we hit him and we win the level and move on to the next one. Or if we're unlucky, we don't, and we just try again. Now everything on the screen pretty much can kill us. That little bullet going around, that little ion bullet thing from the cannon can kill us as well, as can the alien over on the right hand side when he turns into a kind of a spinny sawdust red thing that flies along and hits us. But this game, actually, I will be honest with you, I played an awful lot of this on multi-cart when I made it, so much so that I bought myself an original copy off eBay. I was so impressed with it, and I would recommend it to anybody who would like to play a good Atari game, be it for 2600, 5200 or 7800. So there you go, that is Yar's Revenge. Cosmic Arc, you use the up, down, left and right to shoot bullets to destroy asteroids on the first screen. And then moving on to the next screen, you launch out a kind of a little shuttlecraft with a tractor beam that's activated by pressing the button. And you pick up the 2 little animals on the bottom while trying to avoid being shot by the kind of laser turrets that are going up and down. You enter back into your craft, and then you can shoot again to shoot 1 or 2 little asteroids, and you go back to a screen pretty much like the first screen. And this repeats and repeats and repeats over and over again, getting harder and harder, with different little animals to pick up on each level, and also the turrets moving faster and shooting more often. You have a colossal amount of lives. I don't know how many lives you have. I think you've got like 8 or 9 lives. But the game itself is a classic. Everyone talks about this and they find it to be fantastic. Now, the first time I ever played this game was back in 1997 when I bought myself a second-hand 7800, and it was one of the games that came with it. And I remember I put it on, it was just in the evening when I got home from work with the system, and I put it on, and this was, like I said, first game I played on it. I wasn't overly impressed by it, but I played it a few times and I kind of got into it. It gets very hard very quick, that's the thing. But it's also, it's not a bad game to try out. Okay, so seeing as it was coming up to Halloween at the time of making this, I decided I'd throw in a little bit of Frankenstein and let you have a look at this. So I've never played this game. Well, I never played this game up until I built my little multi-cart, and I threw a few games on that I had never heard of before, and I found this one to be kind of fun. What you got to do is you got to go to the bottom right hand side of the screen and pick up red bricks and bring them up to the top of the screen. And at the top of the screen then you can use them to build a wall around Frankenstein. Now it consists of kind of two screens. There's a screen where you're running around trying to get the brick, and then there's the screen where you've got it and you're bringing it up to Frankenstein himself to try and construct a wall. And what you see is a kind of a field filled with what I assume are bats, although they're green on this system. But once you get past those, you place the brick and it kind of builds up one block of the wall, I suppose. And then you've got to go through it again. And the level changes as you progress. Now Frankenstein starts off fully white and he gets green. He builds himself up green as the game moves along. So he's kind of charging up. Once he gets fully green, you lose a life and he escapes and he kind of destroys the village, I suppose. You can also lose a life by falling in the water down below at the bottom of the screen. And basically what you're doing is you're trying to construct a wall to keep Frankenstein at bay. And that's pretty much this game. Okay, so Beserk is a game that was published by Atari back in 1982, and it's based on the arcade game of the same name. And you can see that the robots that are in it trying to attack you are heavily inspired by the Cylons in Battlestar Galactica. They've got that little kind of spinny around thing that the Cylons had, like a little lead on their faces for eyes. But it's a game where you're a guy kind of stuck in a maze, and you kind of shoot all the Cylons, and then you move through a door into the next maze. Now the things you can't do are, number one, touch a Cylon. Number two, get shot by one of their bullets. And number three, walk into a wall, because all the walls are electrified. And if you do any of those things, you will end up dead. And you only have a certain number of lives. And the game, again, there's no real objective apart from kill as many of these Cylon-y things as you can to rack up points, which is pretty much what games of the time were all about. One of the other things is you can actually use a little bit of strategy in this game. Well, very loosely speaking, because they will follow you, but they don't really appear to have any kind of brains, so they will walk right into electric walls to try and get to you. And they will also shoot, and if one of the Cylons finds himself in the path of another little Cylon's bullet, he'll end up dead as well. So there's a little bit of strategy you can use while playing this game. And no, I'd say it's a good game. I enjoy this one too. Nice little game, this. Yeah, so Demon Attack is a game that's going to keep on coming up in this little series because, well, it's a game that's after being ported to an awful lot of systems, so it makes it kind of very easy to compare one system to another while playing it. But Demon Attack I find to be quite a fun game as well, to be honest with you. Although the Atari version is probably one of the most basic versions there are. You don't have any graphics in the background, whereas on some of the other versions you've got a kind of lunar landscape and some planets and stuff in the background while you're playing. But the gameplay is pretty much the same as on many of the other systems. So you can go from the left to the right and you can shoot, and that's pretty much it. There's an awful lot of variation on the aliens between levels, between how they look, the colours they are, and the type of things that they shoot at you. And there's even on one of the higher levels, the aliens, when they get shot, start turning into small birds. So if you start with 3 aliens and you shoot them, you end up with 6 aliens that you have to kill. But it's a good little game, this, and it also kind of shows off what the Atari 2600 could do. Because many of the other games are kind of static. There's not much going on screen unless you move the little man, you know. However, this particular game, there's always something happening. There's plenty of movement, there's plenty of speed in it, it's very responsive. And it's actually a fun game to play. It's a very playable game, this one. It is harder than some of the other versions that I've played. If you've seen the Philips C52 game video thing that I put out not too long ago, I played a version of this on that as well, and it was an awful lot easier than this version. But I would recommend it again to anyone who wants to try out an old Atari 2600 console. If you want to play one or two fairly good games, stick Demon Attack in as one of your games to try out. And It'll show you the console's capable of quite a lot. Remember that coming up next month there will be another episode of PT Plays, in which I don't know what system I'm going to play, but I'll surely root out something. Be aware, if it's your first time to the channel, that I do more than just games. I also do computer upgrades and repairs, and just look at hardware in general and fool around with it. So if that kind of thing interests you as well, why not subscribe? If you like the old video, give us a thumbs up, and that way more people will see it, and well, more people might enjoy it, who knows. In any case, take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you very soon. And a very happy Halloween to everybody. Bye bye.